Verið sæl og velkomin. Hi, welcome back to Icelandic for Foreigners. In this episode, we're going to continue the series on strong verbs, particularly talking about how to conjugate them in the subjunctive. Now, in this video, I'm not going to be talking about when to use the subjunctive. I have a series of videos that deal specifically with that. This video is only about the conjugation itself. Let's get started. So for the present subjunctive, here's what you need to know. First of all, it's always predictable, except for the verb að vera. So this is really nice. It's one of the few things in Icelandic that you can actually predict and be right every time, except for að vera. There are never any vowel shifts in the present subjunctive except for umlaut in the við form, which we'll see an example of. So let's look at the example that we've been starting with here, að bjóða, to invite. Let's look at the present subjunctive conjugation. Ég bjóði. So notice here, there's no vowel shift. We just use the infinitive vowel and we just add the subjunctive ending. Þú bjóðir, hann, hún, það bjóði, við bjóðum, þið bjóðið, þeir, þær, þau bjóði. And every verb in Icelandic follows this pattern. I do want to look at one other example where we can see the umlaut in the við form. So we have taka, to take. We have ég taki, þú takir, hann, hún, það taki, við tökum, so there's the umlaut right there, þið takið, and þeir, þær, þau taki. Now, I told you that að vera was the one irregular verb in the subjunctive, so let's look at its forms real quick. We have ég sé, þú sért, hann, hún, það sé, við séum, þið séuð, þeir, þær, þau séu. All right, let's move on to the past subjunctive and strong verbs. So here's what you need to know. There's only one vowel shift for all 6 of the past subjunctive forms, but that vowel shift is different depending on what kind of vowel shift you have in the past tense. So the vowel shift in the past tense often helps you predict the past subjunctive vowel shift, and we're going to look at that right now. Now, a quick note before we move on. Strong verbs in the past subjunctive are hard to predict. You can only learn patterns and then guess. You can't be sure unless you look it up on Bin or ask an Icelander. All right, let's get started. Now, in my last video, we looked at vowel shifts in the past tense, and we looked at all these different categories which have some of the most common vowel shifts in the past tense. We're going to use these exact same categories to talk about the vowel shift in the past subjunctive. So we're going to look at each of these one at a time. The first one, we looked at the example að bjóða, which became bauð and buðu in the past tense. There are several verbs in Icelandic that have these forms, and the past subjunctive vowel shift shifts into an upsilon. So let's look at the different forms. We have ég biði, þú biðir, hann, hún, það biði, við biðum, þið biðuð, and þeir, þær, þau biðu. So any verb that has this shift in the past tense is going to shift to an upsilon in the past subjunctive. And notice we just have that upsilon in every form of the past subjunctive on both sides of the chart. The next group, we looked at the verb að bíta, which had beit and betu in the past tense. Verbs that have this shift in the past tense will shift to an e in the past subjunctive. So we have ég biti, þú bitir, hann, hún, það biti, við bitum, þið bituð, and þeir, þær, þau bitu. For the next group, we looked at a whole list of verbs that all turned into an a and an au in the past tense. Most of these verbs in the past subjunctive will shift to an ai. So bera becomes bæri, lesa becomes læsi, gefa becomes gæfi, sofa becomes svæfi, biðja becomes bæði, and geta becomes gæti. The next category is similar. When we have o and o in the past tense, we have a shift to an æ. So taka becomes tæki, fara becomes færi, slá becomes slægi, and we're actually going to look at these different forms to see how they work. Ég slægi, and notice that the G is pronounced like a J. Þú slægir, hann, hún, það slægi, við slægjum, with a J put in so that the G still sounds like a J. Þið slægjuð, and þeir þær þau slæju. For draga, we have dragi, and fela, we have fæli. All right, for this next class, we looked at the verbs falla, láta, fá, and ganga. These will usually shift into either a je or an in the past tense. Or in the past subjunctive, sorry. So falla becomes fjalli, láta becomes léti, fá becomes fengi, and the vid form is fengjum, and ganga becomes gengi and gengjum. Those last two are pretty irregular. All right, this next one, we looked at the examples vinna and bresta, which in the past subjunctive take an upsilon and become inni and bristi. In my last video, we also looked at strong verbs that have a strong form in the present tense, but a DTD ending in the past tense. These were the examples we looked at, and in the past tense, we saw that we added a DTD ending, and we also shifted the main vowel to an a. Now, to make the past subjunctive of these verbs, we're just going to not shift the vowel to an a. So we're still going to add the DTD ending. So verja becomes verdi, kveðja becomes kvetti, krefja becomes krefði, vekja becomes vekti, lemja becomes lemti, kvetja becomes kvetti, and telja becomes telti. We also looked at some very irregular verbs with DTD endings that were irregular all around, and so let's look at those ones too. These were the examples we looked at. So the past subjunctive for these different verbs, þurfa becomes þyrfti, vilja becomes vilti, mega becomes mætti, eiga becomes ætti, vita becomes vissi, and hafa becomes hefði. Now, I know that this was a lot to absorb, so take it slow, take it one class at a time. When you learn a verb and its past tense forms, try remembering which vowel goes with the past subjunctive for that particular form. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments below, and stay posted for more. Bless, bless.